I want to start off tonight by painting you a small picture. The year is 1947. It's a brisk September day on the Harvard campus, and a bunch of computer scientists have been diligently programming on their Mark II computer. But then something strange happens. Grace Hopper documents for us that a moth flies into the moving parts of the computer and causes the program to crash. And this, my friends, is the first case of a bug in a computer program. Now, I teach computer science at a high school in Brooklyn, and sometimes I have a very similar problem. A spider or some other creepy crawly makes its way into my classroom, and I have to debug before all of my students totally freak out. But more often than not, debugging looks a little different. You see, when we write code, sometimes our program just doesn't work. Maybe we forgot a parentheses, or we spelled the variable name wrong, or maybe our program does run, just not the way that we expect it to run. Either way, we're stuck. So how do we get unstuck? Enter our trusty friend, the rubber duck. Or, if you have Amazon Prime and free same-day shipping, a really big duck. Now, if you've been on field trips to tech companies like Google or Facebook or Squarespace, you might have seen these ducks sitting on programmers' desks. They're not there for decoration. They're there for companionship. I don't know why you guys are laughing, I'm serious. They call it rubber duck debugging, and it's all about verbalizing the bug out loud. So how do you do it? Well, you take your duck. By the way, it's got to be a duck. You might be tempted to use your fuzzy teddy bear or your G.I. Joe action figure or your super cool 3D printed skull or your kids' kindergarten art project. But folks, none of those are as effective. Research shows it. All right, so you take your duck. You put it in just the right spot on your desk. Heck, maybe you even give it a name. Here's the first step. You have to build the courage to talk to a duck. Sure, you might be able to solve your problem by thinking your way through it, but you have a much better chance if you build the courage to actually talk your way through it. There have been so many times where a student experiences a bug, and so they call me over and they start explaining their problem, and they have this aha moment right in the middle of explaining while I just stood there. Right, you guys are nodding, right? You've been there? They don't necessarily need someone to talk to, they just need something. And I say it takes courage because, oftentimes my students think they're too cool to talk to themselves, let alone a duck. And maybe that's true for adults too. Okay, so you've built the courage. What do you say to the duck? Well, here's a good starting point. You tell the duck what's supposed to happen. Then you tell the duck what's happening instead. And then you just do your best to explain the disconnect one piece at a time. Now, maybe that doesn't work. If you're doing this on a computer and your computer is giving you an error message, make sure you read that error message out loud. Or perhaps your program is just way too complicated and you need to simplify it and test it out just one piece at a time. Just talk to your duck as you go. Perhaps you need to do a Google search and then take what you find, tinker with your program, modify your Google search, rinse and repeat. And now that might not work either. Because unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, there is no silver bullet. The techniques will vary, and there will be times when you feel like your duck just let you down. But more often than not, this does work. My 10th graders and I, we work through the very simple game of Pong. And it's a pretty boring game, and so I have them do a remix. And they, oftentimes they will make the game more challenging by making the paddle get shorter. But what they do is they program the paddle to appear shorter, but they forget to program the functionality of the ball bouncing off of a smaller width, resulting in a bug. I don't tell them how to fix it. I don't even tell them what's wrong. I just have them rubber duck debug, and it usually works. Now, in a math classroom, this might look like graphing the cosine of x and seeing a flat line instead of a wavy function. The solution is to either change your window settings or switch your mode from degrees to radians, and a duck might help you fix that. In science, perhaps you are measuring your control versus your experimental group, and your results just don't make any sense. maybe if you talk to a duck, you'll realize that you didn't zero out your scale. My assistant principal, who often calls me to his office because he's working on a spreadsheet formula and wants my help, I show up and then he just fixes his problem right in front of me. So I gave him a duck this year, and now he calls me to his office less. Thanks, Dave. Even in my own marriage, sometimes I verbally process my emotional bugs. And, my wife says that I need to land the plane, so to speak. I think all that circling at 30,000 feet gives me the view that I need to debug my problems. Now look, the context is going to take many shapes, but so often the process is similar. We can typically think way faster than we can speak. And so by verbally processing, we are forced to slow down and thus possibly catch something that we would have otherwise missed. And talking to a duck means that we have to include every single detail because a duck doesn't know anything about our problem. So by being thorough, we're more likely to shine light on the bug. You see, the distance between our brain and our mouth is pretty small, but the impact of talking versus simply thinking can be quite large. So often in my classroom, when a student experiences a bug, I want to help them with that specific bug. But I think I'm doing them a disservice if I'm constantly handing them the exact tool that they'll need. Our students leave our classroom with this toolbox, and it's going to be up to them to approach a bug or any problem and ask themselves, which tool is right for the job? And I think it helps if they ask that question out loud to a duck. But make no mistake, when you rubber duck debug, the duck is not the hero. You are the hero for, this is you. You are the hero for building the courage to talk to a toy, for persevering through all that verbal processing, and for ultimately conquering the bug. So error is not something to be discouraged by. It's something to be empowered by. So be empowered and empower your students. Talk to rubber ducks. And to get you started, I am going to end this talk Oprah style. So you get a duck, and you get a duck, and you get a duck. You all get ducks. I mean it. You all get ducks. They're going to be waiting for you in the lobby. Feel free to grab one on your way out. Thank you so much.